Hey guys, welcome to 48 Minutes or Less NBA Podcast, your weekly podcast for all things NBA delivered to you in less than 48 minutes. I'm Sawyer, and joining me today is the defender on the wing, Lewis, and the point of attack is George. Hey guys.
Hey Sawyer, how you doing?
Great. How about you, George? How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. It's a wonderful week. It's nice weather outside, and it's good to be back.
All right. So guys, for this week, we wanted to talk about two key players who had their returns. One had a pretty stellar return, and the other one not as much. But we are getting a nice return from, maybe an NBA, future Hall of Famer, Mr. Midrange, Mr. I choose money over winning, Mr. Corn Rolls, Hoodie Mellow.
Mr. Nueva York.
In the second section of the podcast, we'll go in depth on some players that have come out of the gates running, or should we say ballin', and if we believe it's sustainable. So one of those players who made his return on Thursday night was Paul George for the Clippers. What do you guys have to think about, or what do you guys have to say about his return?
Well, I was the one that said he was DeMar DeRozan with a three-point shot, and he must have heard through my podcast somehow that I said that, because he's out to prove me wrong. He has been straight balling. He has been amazing over the last two games, and obviously it's 2 games, but it looks like he came back from that shoulder injury better than ever, and he has been amazing. In 44 minutes, he's had 70 points. The first game back against the Pelicans, they might have lost, but he was amazing. Not so much on defense, though. He even said after the game that he played terrible. I don't know, 33 points, 4 assists, 9 rebounds, 59% from the field and 60% from 3. I don't know. That doesn't sound like bad to me.
No, and honestly, was he really hurt? I mean, it's hard to really tell if he was hurt at all. Most people come back and they don't really play this well. Most people. Maybe just Paul George is just different, It's just special.
So my thing, at least for me, my thing with Paul George is that, well, I have to say, within 2 games, he's looked amazing, considering he's on a minutes restriction. What is he? He's close to almost 58 points per 36, right? Which is ridiculous to think about. That's more than James Harden.
They're also giving him the ball too.
And I think part of that is just to get him back into the flow of the offense, to kind of get him accustomed. Because last year he was dealing with that shoulder injury near the end of the year, and so if he's feeling great, just kind of get him back into that motion of basketball. I just worry a little bit because Paul George hasn't proven to be the most consistent guy. He'll start out really hot and then have periods where we'll just go cold for an entire month. So I just worry that this could be a really hot start, and then come playoffs, we're getting the Paul George shooting 36% from the field. Granted, it's been 2 games, he's looked great, which I'm guessing if you're a Clippers fan or just a fan of the NBA, it's always good to see your star players come back better than ever. We'll see, especially with Kawhi and the Clippers have a lot more depth. We'll see if he can put up those MVP type numbers that he did last year, when he probably had the best year of his career. But it's great to see Paul George back, and anytime that a superstar comes back, the NBA just gets better, right?
I think a lot of times he was playing a little more hero ball last year, or at least trying to be, because he was playing with Russell Westbrook, but Kawhi Leonard is a lot better than Russell Westbrook, I feel, in my opinion. I actually think he's probably maybe a better scorer. He actually plays better defense. I actually think that Paul George may not be asked to do so much all year long, and that might end up helping keep him a little more fresh when it comes to the games that matter, because this is without a doubt the best player that Paul George has played with in his career. It's the same thing you could say about Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis is with the best player he's ever been with in his career,
and it's probably the best cast of characters that he's played with in terms of depth,
and they're all hardworking players. They're all tough, scrappy players.
That's what I've been surprised. I guess maybe not so surprised that their defense hasn't been very good this year, because they don't have a real rim protector, and Harrell and Lou Williams are both negative defensive players. So it'll be nice to have Paul George, who's Paul George at this point, I would say he's a better wing defender than Kawhi is. Kawhi just doesn't, ever since his injury, he's kind of lost that step on that end of the court. Although he can turn it on, he's kind of become like LeBron on defense.
Yeah, but he with Kawhi, he'll pick a few minutes here and there during the game to where he really turns it on both ends of the court, and he just completely blows it out of the water.
Would you consider that Kawhi's almost becoming a highlight defender, where you get these amazing 4 or 5 plays in the game where his defense is amazing and he just steals the ball or makes a really quick, smart move or moves his feet the right way? Or do you think he's a consistent defender throughout the entire game, or somewhere in the middle?
I would actually say that I could see that being the case. I can also actually see the fact that he plays. There's some things he does on defense that you may just not see. He plays really. He's a natural defender. Like the way he plays the game. That's how he came to this league. Playing really good defense and then developed his shot and everything. And I just think it's you may see those highlights, but I would still consider him kind of a shutdown defender. They have other people on the team that are good defenders as well. So I feel like a lot of times, especially when they have Paul George too, I think he's a good defender, but I could easily see them going with having Paul George be on the best defender. That way they can have Kawhi Leonard fresher on the other end of the court to help distribute and create shots and stuff like that. Because I feel like he might be slightly better at that right now than Paul George. I could be wrong, obviously. I guess we'll see, but I feel like they'd rather have Paul George there more on the defensive side than Kawhi to keep Kawhi fresher.
So how do you think? Because unfortunately we have yet to see both Kawhi and Paul George share the court as of this recording. And how do you guys think they're gonna run the offense through them? Or is it gonna be like a motion type of offense, or do you think they're gonna put Paul George in a more off-ball row where he's gonna become more of a spot-up shooter, kind of like a glorified 3-and-D Klay Thompson kind of player?
I've been a little iffy on what's gonna happen, because we're talking about Paul George just came back from an MVP season where he was the man, and he's been the man for the Pacers, and he was the man when he was in OKC. Even though I felt like the city belonged to Russell Westbrook did sort of defer to Paul George. He understood that Paul George was a better basketball player. Now Paul George has to take the second string, because at the end of the day, Kawhi Leonard is the man on this team, and he's going to be the one that's going to be taking the shots in the final minutes, and he's going to be the one that people are going to be looking at for the clutch moves. So he kind of has to defer. I wouldn't want to see Paul George be put in just a spot up 3 role, because he has so much more ability in this game. But I guess we'd have to see. I know defensively he's going to be their main key piece. I'm a little worried still defensively about them, because even though they're great perimeter defenders, they still don't have a good center defender, and the center role is probably the most important role in defense. And especially if you're looking at your toughest matchup in the West being the Lakers, who have the best, who they're probably more than likely going to play Anthony Davis at center in the playoffs, and Anthony Davis is the center. He's the best center in the NBA.
I would say they probably put him in center position maybe towards the end of the game, maybe not start him at center.
Considering Dwight Howard's been able to kind of hold himself up so far, I don't think they'll want to strain Anthony Davis that much throughout the playoffs.
Yeah, but if they need it, he's going to play center.
Yeah.
If it's coming down to it, or they're below on, or they're behind on the game, they know Anthony Davis at center is his best position, and he is at center, I would say probably the best player in the NBA.
So at least for me, it's hard to know right now. I still have the Clippers as my favorite, and I think they'll probably go all the way. The Lakers just don't have enough depth to make it there, and I do not see this being like another Clippers team a couple of years ago that was never able to make it past the second round, who just so happened to have a player that recently came back from an injury this week as well, Blake Griffin with the Detroit Pistons. So far, I would say Blake hasn't been bad, but you can see that he's working himself back into game shape, considering he was dealing with these injuries before playoffs last year, and then he tried returning when he wasn't fully healthy. So he's been out of practice for a while. So far through 2 games, he's averaging about 19 points, but only shooting under 40% from the field and under 20% from 3. I can see that probably itching its way back once he gets more into game shape and just kind of flows more into the offense, especially with he's also adapting now that Luke Kennard has increased role in the offense. Andrew Drummond was a 2020 monster, so just kind of grinding till he gets back into in-game shape. I do not think he will be able to match the All-NBA season he had last year, which is arguably the best season of his career since he was since his top 3 MVP year. But I still think Blake Griffin can be a productive player. There's a part of me that wonders if Detroit, because they're not doing that well right now, if things continue this way, if they're going to try to seek out trades for these guys and just actually go through the rebuild process that they have been so against doing, considering Andrew Drummond's also going to be a free agent if he declines his player option.
Yeah, and I actually, now that you bring that up, I actually never thought about this before, but the fact that what would you rather have, Blake Griffin or Kevin Love if you were Portland? Because in all honesty, if I were Portland, I actually think I would rather trade for Blake Griffin than for Kevin Love. I feel like I don't know. I feel like it wouldn't be as expensive,
long,
actually.
Right? It's not as long, but it's a lot more money per year.
Yeah, but I don't think they would have to be. I don't think they'd be required to give up nearly as much as, say, they would have to, much as the Cavs would actually want for him. Because in the sense, like if you think about it, in some ways they could easily trade, say like for an example, they probably would have to give up like I could easily see like CJ McCollum and then like a protected first round pick this year and then like an unprotected one 2 years from now for like Blake Griffin. Like I can easily see that being a possibility if they really wanted to move on from Blake Griffin. Not saying that they want to, but I'm saying if they were considering it, like I could see that being a better deal than if that was a similar deal for the Cavs.
Because you mentioned this last week, and I'll say the same thing as last week. That I just don't see Portland realistically giving up CJ McCollum. Like that's their duo, and to make the salaries work, they'd have to give up Whiteside probably, and then maybe Kent Bazemore. And I just don't know if Blake Griffin's that great of a fit since he likes to kind of run the offense as well, and Portland already has CJ and Dame to do that.
Well, that's why I was saying like if they were to give up CJ, having like because it'd be a similar role to what it was like in back in with the Clippers during the Lob City era with having Chris Paul and Blake Griffin together.
I mean, at least if I was Detroit, I wouldn't want CJ. He doesn't play that well. There's no high end with CJ. Like CJ is better as a complementary player, not as like.
Well, the thing is, I don't see either team making any. I don't see the Cavs or Detroit making this deal anyways. I'm just saying as a hypothetical. Like Garrett, I really don't think it'd be possible, but I'm just imagining if it did happen.
If Blake Griffin were to go to Portland, I mean, I wouldn't hate it. I think I would say why not. Blake Griffin's great. Portland needs a forward. Blake Griffin is probably the one that gives you the most championship upside out of the three forwards the two that we mentioned last week in last week's podcast. If you guys haven't listened to that, go check it out. It was great. But I think Blake Griffin gives you the highest upside. It's just a matter of like how you make the trade happen. And I feel for Detroit, for the Motor City to make the trade for Blake Griffin, they would first be looking to trade Drummond, because just at that point, I think they're looking at blowing it up. I think Detroit has a tough choice to make this year as far as where they're going, and I could see them making a trade, but I can also see them just being happy with contending for the 8th seed like they've been doing since like the 2004 championship run.
Yeah, I mean, they certainly don't. The whole Dwayne Casey hiring certainly signals that they're not looking at bottoming out in any way, shape, or form. Like Dwayne Casey's like, he's a really good coach. He's a coach you have to like, hey, I have a team now. Let's get them into the playoffs and win a championship, or at least try to contend. I just don't think Detroit has as much of a complete roster as they need to be.
Do you guys think Detroit has a chance of making the playoffs this year?
I think so. I mean, with Blake Griffin back, and like, do you know, Detroit's like weird. Every season they kind of like will sometimes start out going like, they'll go into like a 9-game win streak and then lose 12 straight, and then by the end of the season it all just evens out and they're a 500 team. They'll go like 39.
I mean, do you guys, at least in the East, I currently feel like there are 5 teams that are certainly locked for the playoffs, which would be the Boston, Milwaukee, Philly, the Heat, and Toronto.
Toronto.
And then I would say the Pacers, I'm like 70% sure. Unless something like goes magically wrong, I can only see them getting better. Though they have had an easy schedule, I still don't see them falling out of the playoffs. So in the other 2 spots, I would say realistically speaking, is between the Magic, the Nets, and Detroit. And I think the Magic have the best roster to make at least a 7th seed. I think they're the ones that have the highest odds of making the playoffs.
Especially considering the Magic are the 30th worst. They're the 30th worst offense, and like lately, and you've seen, and that's why they've been able to pull so many wins lately. Is eventually they're going to regress back to the mean because they can't stay that bad on offense, and you can trust your defense more to take you there than your offense.
I also feel like the Magic can withstand an injury. Like if Kyrie Irving goes down, the Nets are screwed.
If Kyrie Irving goes down, the Nets might make playoffs.
And also they just lost Karis LeVert. So another injury will hurt them even more. At the other hand, like Blake Griffin can easily go down again, and they have no one at point guard with the Pistons.
Because they have Rose, who's injury prone, and then they have Reggie Jackson that hasn't been good since his OKC days. So,
and is also injury prone.
Yeah, and their upside
and Blake Griffin, who's also injury prone.
Blake Griffin played out of his mind last season, and that got them a 41-41 record, if I recall. Yeah. I can't expect that again for Blake Griffin. And yeah, Luke Kennard has made some improvements, but like, how much is that improvement going to lead to winning? We'll have to see. The thing is, every team in the East, in the bottom half of the East, is so bad that you can literally go 4-12 and you can still make playoffs at this point.
I mean, I actually think that the Hornets might actually have maybe a shot if things go their way. They have a possibility of squeezing into the playoffs with like the 8th seed. Like they're playing pretty well. And like I'm surprised at how well they're playing considering they did lose Kemba Walker. Like they haven't I would say they're as decent. They're like decent enough as they were last year, even with Kemba Walker. Maybe even slightly better overall as a team.
I think if you're a Hornets fan, you have to be pretty pretty happy. Yeah, you overpaid Terry Rozier. With Kemba leaving, they finally, the front office finally decided, hey, let's actually play our young guys instead of playing Nicholas Batum. And turns out, hey, you guys actually have some quality pieces here that you can build a team around.
For them, this is a season about just like, let's figure out what we have and then move forward that way.
Their Sour 16 contracts are getting off the books soon.
Yeah.
So they have good money. They can develop players. Their draft pick, PJ Washington, has been really impressive. Their future is a lot brighter than I thought, but I don't think they have what it takes to make the playoffs.
Not at least now. They're relying too much on young guys.
No, like I said, it's all about like if things go the right way, like if Kyrie Irving misses some time, if the Magic don't really pick it up on offense, and Detroit seems to kind of just like sit around that like 500-ish mark or just below it like the entire season or something like that, and like the Hornets like get on like a nice good winning streak or something, like it's the East right now and anything can happen. Outside like the top 6, like the final two spots are kind of a toss-up in my opinion. I mean, there's some teams you're like they're definitely not going to make it. Like New York's not going to make it. Washington is probably not going to make it.
You don't think Marcus Morris Sr. can take them all the way to the playoffs? What's wrong with you?
I don't think he can, but I think Julius Randle probably could.
No, Julius Randle's been awful, man. And I mean, call it confirmation bias. I was never the biggest Julius Randle player. I thought he was one of those empty stats, big numbers, empty stats kind of guy. And the more he plays in New York, the more I feel like I'm right and everybody else was wrong. So, God, I just don't see it.
But hey, at least he got his money.
I'm all over hate Franklin Island, but I don't think they have what it takes. I don't even know why we brought this up. It was obviously a joke. They suck. James Dolan, sell the team.
No, be careful. You can't say that because they'll kick you out of your own podcast.
Oh my God.
Oh my God, James Dolan, they just sent 6 guys on him. 6 guys because they got 1 guy.
Wait, didn't they say it was toxic masculinity or something?
Toxic masculinity, bro.
So, yeah, I mean, having Blake Griffin and Paul George back, too, in the NBA is nice considering all the injuries that have happened lately. You know, another person that has also come back, who a lot of people thought might just retire, but he didn't, is Carmelo Anthony signing with Portland this past week. What do you guys think about that?
I gotta say, I'm pretty negative on it. Like, and let me rephrase that. I think it stinks donkey balls.
That's fine.
I just don't see it. Carmelo has been on 2 teams already where he's been awful on them and have made them worse. And you can talk about Houston, like, oh, it wasn't all Carmelo's fault, but it just so happens when Carmelo gets taken out of the team, they start winning games. He's known to affect locker room chemistry. He's mad about not getting all the shots. He wants to be the first guy. People talk about Carmelo. Oh, this time, everybody's always like, this time Carmelo's going to do it. This time Carmelo's going to learn how to play defense and play off the ball and not do isolation plays and all this stuff. But Carmelo has never played good defense in his entire career. What makes people think that he's going to start now? And yeah, he might bring more offensively than Mario Hezonja can, but he's going to bring so much less on the defense that it won't make. That it won't make a difference unless Portland just wants it to be a shoot-around where Dame Lillard and CJ are taking threes. Well, at this point, CJ's not making any threes, so just Dame is taking threes, and Carmelo's trying to ISO without the ball.
I would say there's some potential if maybe he can, get a good couple points against the second unit. My problem would be when he starts taking possessions away from Dame, who's having the best season of his career so far. Then that becomes a problem because every shot Melo takes that Dame isn't taking is a bad shot. But at the same time, it's non-guaranteed contract. And what the hell do they have to lose?
4 more games and then they're 4-12.
And then they could just let Melo go after that. But I mean, they're not winning games. They also, the thing with Portland though, and my thing is, I didn't like that they signed Melo, not because of Melo as a player, but because they seem really desperate. And I know they're 4-8, but they've also arguably had the toughest schedule to date. They've had, I think, they have only 5 home games until December. Until Christmas, they only have 5 home games. So they've had a lot of away games. They've had really long road trips. And they've also faced pretty hard teams. So, I just think they have an easier schedule at the end. So they might be over compensating, or they're too nervous, or they're freaking out. And I also understand that because you made the conference finals last year. Though, I mean, obviously, and seeding worked in their favor. But still, I think they're overdoing it. But I mean, maybe he goes the Dwight Howard approach. Maybe he goes the Vince Carter approach, where he just accepts that his prime is done. He isn't the answer to save a team. He's never been to begin with. Maybe he's a little less cocky. Hopefully, I would love to see it because even though I'm a huge fan of analytics, and Melo has not been the king of analytics for sure. I mean, it's nice to see him at least I don't know, maybe he can make a return and be good for a team, at least contribute. And then we can get like him and Vince Carter for the All-Star game or something. And then he like finally retires and I never have to hear about his cornrows again.
I mean, I think this is probably... I like that he's back in the league at least, just to give it one last shot. But I definitely see like this might definitely... Unless he has a fantastic career and somebody wants to take a chance on him next year, this is probably his last year in the league. And a lot of it is just because the league changed right out from under him, and he kind of refused to kind of change his game like some other players chose to, and that came to bite him in the butt a little bit. But I feel like he got humbled a little bit with everything that happened, and the fact that nobody wanted to really sign him now, and now a team that seems a little desperate is signing him, not because they want him, they're just because they seem kind of desperate, they're signing him. So it's possible he could easily come out and do really well for them, or at least provide some kind of spark, at least for some games, maybe until McCollum finally like gets out of this funk he's in right now, or another player steps up. I mean, I think he's really accepted the fact that this is the end of his career, and he just wants to play basketball, and I appreciate that.
If Houston was unable to get Melo to change his game, and at first it seemed like he was trying to, right? I'm not going to take that away from him. But if Houston, the city of analytics, right, the team of analytics, was unable to get Melo to change his game, I just don't see it happening in Portland. And maybe he has been humbled, but we're talking about Melo. I don't even know if Melo knows what being humble is. This guy literally had 6 months left on his contract and asked to be traded because he didn't want to play there anymore, and then had New York give away all these pieces that could have actually helped him win. So he's never cared about winning. All he's ever cared about his entire career is putting up numbers. Like, he's made it to the conference finals once when he was in Denver. Melo isn't the move you make when you're trying to win. Melo is the move you make when you're trying to get that number one pick. That's what my boys Portland are doing. That's what my boys Portland is trying to draft the next Greg Oden. Portland is trying to pass up a Michael Jordan for Sam Bowie. That's my hot take. Portland trying to tank, boy. Portland trying to tank. Dame on the trade block.
I was about to say that.
LeBron, Dame on the trade block.
All right, so I think we can all agree that it's definitely probably not the greatest idea, but I would have to say it's kind
of
a
wait and lose approach.
One last thing.
Just to kind of see how it goes.
And I want your honest opinions. Do you not feel like the Players Association should sue the NBA for taking away from us what could possibly have been the best basketball player of all time if they were allowed to wear hoodies on the court? I'm saying we missed probably the best basketball player to ever play the game because they're not allowed to wear hoodies.
No. That's
really, George.
No. I want your honest opinion.
George.
Yeah, you didn't flow right. It didn't make sense.
But
it didn't make sense.
I think Lewis had you beaten that hot take right there.
Yeah, my hot take made sense.
Can we all agree that if there... I think we can all agree. Do you guys think that if there was no 3-point line, that Melo would probably, like...
Probably not.
No, because he's a bad mid-range shooter. DeMar DeRozan would be a better NBA player because he's an actually good mid-range shooter.
Melo was good at...
LaMarcus Aldridge would be the number one player in the NBA.
Melo was good at two things in his career. Taking 22 shots to put up 22 points. and rebounding.
I think he always tried really hard to, average the same amount of points and millions of dollars.
He always tried to average as many points as shots he took. He just always ended up taking more shots.
Yeah. 23 points, 42 shots. All right, you guys ready?
Remember that one time Melo was in New York and they lost?
You mean every time? God, he's so bad.
So yeah, I believe it's definitely... I think it's definitely a wait and see approach, but it's probably overall not a great idea for them. But I guess we'll see. But he obviously hasn't even played a game yet, at least not while we've been recording this, but there are a couple players that have had a pretty good start to the season. Most notably we got Andrew Wiggins, Devontae Graham's been doing really well, and then also Luka Doncic has been amazing this year. What do you guys actually think about Andrew Wiggins, and how do you think his career is now a little bit more back on track? Do you think that he's going to regress more towards the means of what he's normally done in his career, or is this the new Andrew Wiggins?
So I think with Andrew Wiggins, I've been like one of the Andrew Wiggins naysayers for a really long time now, and I was never there to call him a bust because he was actually playing. For me, a bust is some guy that's like can't even play, right? Andrew Wiggins belongs in the NBA.
Yeah, he's not Anthony Barnett.
He's just not
or Bennett. Anthony Bennett.
Yeah, yeah. It's not Anthony Bennett. So he actually belongs in the NBA. It's just he's more of a disappointment. It's been, what is it now, like 12 games this season?
11 games.
11 games. He's putting up 25 points, close to 26 points, which would be a career high. 6 rebounds, 5 rebounds and around 4 assists, which would also be a career high, because Andrew Wiggins, if there's one thing he's always been criticized for, is his passing, which is really impressive. And it's not even that. He's shooting above league average in true shooting, and he's actually putting up this with a good efficiency. He's not like shooting 27 times to score these 26 points. I just don't want to say this is the new Andrew Wiggins, and Andrew Wiggins is going to be now. He could be one of those guys who was a late bloomer, like Kyle Lowry, like Mike Conley, like Chauncey Billups, right? But they were also, all three of those guys were guards, and guards usually, like point guards usually take a lot longer to develop than small forwards. So it's a wait-and-see game. I do like that at least for now, the Andrew Wiggins that I'm seeing is actually contributing to winning basketball. And for him, that's a large step forward, considering he hasn't done that in about 2 seasons. Well, pretty much never in his career.
Yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of it has to do, too, with just the amount of coaches they've kind of gone through. And maybe now they finally have a coach that is able to get through to him, maybe. I don't know. It just, I hope, like, I don't like him, but I also don't hate him either as a player. I hope he's still kind of young. He's only 24. Like if this may be a career best for him, but if he can at least keep up his efficiency, at least going forward, then I would say good for him. But I mean, that team, no matter what, is going to be Karl-Anthony Towns' team. So I think he needs to just accept that and stop taking as many shots.
Well, it's not bad if he takes as many shots if he's actually making them. So he's had hot stretches before, but this one just seems different because he's making smarter choices. He's shown like he has a lot more vision. It used to be like Andrew Wiggins gets the ball and all he can think about is trying to score. Now he's shooting more threes. He's shooting less from the mid-range. He's trying to go to the basket more. He's drawing more fouls. He's seeing passing lanes. He's seeing open players. He's just making smarter choices. And if that can continue, even if his efficiency goes down a little and he might be on a hot stretch, there's still value there because he's better offensively and he's also being engaged more defensively. I mean, if Andrew Wiggins continues like this, they're going to make the playoffs. He has value. If he continues like this, we're talking about Minnesota not having 2 first-round picks that are playing well, that they might be the best young duo in the NBA because they're both under 25.
I feel like that's a little bit of a stretch. Are you saying that they're better than Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid?
Well, I don't consider Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid a duo. I also don't think Joel Embiid together and Ben Simmons are actually good together. I think they're good as a team, but they don't complement each other. This Andrew Wiggins does complement.
Okay, I can agree. I'll agree.
Does complement Cat, and Cat complements Andrew Wiggins because Cat stretches the floor. Now Andrew Wiggins doesn't have to shoot from the mid range. One of the biggest things is that the team is stretched because you have Robert Covington's playing power forward. He's stretching the floor. Cat's stretching the floor. So everyone's outside. So he has a driving lane. So he doesn't have to shoot as many mid-rangers. He can go straight to the basket. So it's helping him. Ryan Saunders has created the perfect system for him to thrive. And as long as he keeps engaged, and that's to me been the biggest problem my entire time watching Andrew Wiggins' career, is that he doesn't seem engaged and that he doesn't love basketball. But if he does love basketball and something finally clicked in him where it's like, hey, like, let's play together as a team. Let's win. I want people to stop saying I'm a bust. I want people to stop saying I'm garbage. I have the skills. He's always had the skills. He's always been athletically gifted. He's He just needs a better basketball IQ and to care more. And if he has that, then Andrew Wiggins is the top 25 player in the NBA.
So my thing is, apparently, Andrew Wiggins was talking about how when he was excluded from the top 100 players, it really affected him. Because he's like, I can't believe that people think that there are 100 players better than me in the NBA. And so Andrew Wiggins might be one of those guys that was, in his entire career, he's always been the best. He was one of the best prospects to ever come out of high school. He was the number one pick. He was compared to Kobe. He was given the chance to succeed. So he's always had it all handed to him. And now that he sees that he might not keep a starting role, that his team drafted a guy who plays the same position as him, that he's not considered, that he's called a bust, that people say he's got the second worst contract in the NBA next to John Wall, that might have finally lit that spark in him, because it might have affected him mentally. He's like, hey, maybe it's time that I actually take some time and improve my game. And that's my main issue with Andrew Wiggins his entire career, was there was so much potential in him that was wasted. And that's what annoyed me so much about his career. And I'm hoping that he continues this, because when we get young guys that start playing at this level, it just makes the NBA better, because now we have a more competitive league. And Minnesota fans need this too. Because if they want to have hope of retaining Towns eventually, then they need a good team around them.
And Cat needs this, because Cat is an amazing talent. He is special as a player. He is special. He is like one of the best 3-point shooters in the NBA, and he's like 7'1". Like, he's special. And to see his talents being wasted on a team that just doesn't have any other good players, it really sucks to see. But if Wiggins stays like this, they could become a nice free agent destination. They can get a third piece, and they can really make some noise in the NBA. And I was high on the Minnesota Timberwolves. I remember you were especially high on the Minnesota Timberwolves for years. You're like, that's one of the top teams, future top teams in the NBA, with Wiggins and Cat. And it's just been really, really sad to see what's happened with Butler and what happened last year. And I hope that Andrew Wiggins stays like this, because it's going to make a much better NBA.
I just like to say for the record, I never believed they were one of the best teams in the league. I just really love Karl-Anthony Towns, and I believed in him. So, I mean, we'll see where Andrew Wiggins goes, but a player that I personally like, just mainly because I got lucky when I picked him up in my fantasy league a little bit, but Devontae Graham has actually been doing really well for the Hornets. He's actually been starting out the last couple of games. He's been putting up, I think close to 22, 23 points a game during these starts. I mean, his averages for the season don't look great. 18 or 19 points, 3 rebounds, 7 assists.
Wait, that's not great? That's
not great?
That's pretty good, man.
I'm saying this as I think he could do better. I mean, I think he's the starting shooting guard right now for that team next to Terry Rozier, and they've actually developed a really nice chemistry, and he's one of the reasons why I think that the Hornets are going in a decent direction for the first time, I feel, in a couple of years. They decide, like you said earlier, they decide not to go play Marvin Williams and Nicholas Batum hardly at all. They're giving these young guys a shot, and some of them have really stepped up, like Devontae Graham, PJ Washington. And Terry Rozier isn't doing amazing, but there's some things he's doing that's making the team pretty good. But, I mean, what do you guys think? I know you guys really haven't really followed them as much as maybe I have, just because I've had Devontae Graham on my team, but what do you guys think?
Well, I mean, I have Scary Terry on my fantasy team, so I've been looking at them, and I've been worried about Scary Terry giving me a scare and losing his starting spot. But I'm actually glad that they're starting them next to each other. I think their chemistry is good. I think they're playing better off. And I think they're accepting their roles well, especially Terry Rozier surprised me at least that he isn't shooting 40 times a game like I thought he would be this year. But about Devontae Graham, it's been a blessing in disguise for the Hornets and for an NBA fan as well. He's been really, really good and much better than... He came out of nowhere. I didn't even know who he was last year. If you were like, hey, have you seen Devontae Graham? And I was like, who? I don't follow college. I don't know who that is. Scrub. That'd be me. But he's been really surprising. He's a second-year point guard right now. So I know he's 24, almost 25. So he's a little bit older, but point guards tend to develop later. So even then, there's still a lot of upside, I would say. And I think he understands basketball well. So I don't know. I'm excited to see where he goes. I'm excited to see where the Hornets goes. Like I said, I'm not following them that much though, because I mean it's really hard to follow Charlotte. But at least Devontae Graham has been a light at the end of a very, very dark tunnel for Charlotte. In my
And
opinion.
I actually think that in my opinion, just real quick, like I think that right now I would say Devontae Graham is probably my pick for most improved player. But more than likely, most of the time, second year players don't really get that reward. But he what he did last year compared to what he's doing this year, it's the difference is crazy. That's where I see it. Like everything is up. Points are up, rebounds are up, assists are up. His field goal percentage is up. His efficiency is up.
It's just really hard for me to award most improved to a second year player just because they're supposed to improve.
Exactly.
Like you're a second year player, you understand. And I still feel like what he's doing doesn't really impress me as much as what Brandon Ingram has done or what Pascal Siakam has done or even what Andrew Wiggins has done.
I don't know. It's hard to, considering he's only played less than 60 games for his entire career. And last year he was only averaging 14 minutes. And now he's all the way in the 30s. Helping his team win games is pretty impressive. I'm just like running through his stats right now, and I just think he has so much potential to improve still. So right now he's shooting a little bit under 42% from 3, taking 6 shots a game. I just wonder if he could pull up 7 or 8 threes a game, how much that would improve him and probably the Hornets offense as well. And maybe he will now that he's just starting. Just if he could bring those 3-pointers up and he still has so many ways to improve as a passer, as a shooter, and I think this kid's good, and it's tough to crack an NBA rotation, especially on a team like the Hornets that have been so adamant about not playing young players very much. And for me, I just think that he's kind of been what the Hornets wanted Malik Monk to be, and he's kind of taken that role and taken it for himself, and now Malik Monk at this point might not be in the NBA very much longer.
Yeah, I mean the thing too is like he's a good shooter, but he can also distribute very well as well, which Malik Monk can't really do nearly as well as he can right now. But when you were talking about he was taking 6 threes or whatever, taking 6 threes a game, what was really impressive for me is on Friday he had a really cold shooting night. He went like 2 for 12, but then just on Sunday he went out and made 9 3-pointers. Like it's nice to see when players that look like they're doing well and then they have a bad game, but then they're able to come back and have a good game as well. It's like you said, it's great for the NBA. It's a nice storyline. You know, seeing these young players just improve. It's just great to see.
Yeah, I mean, between Graham, PJ, and Bridges, the Hornets don't look that bad. And I've been down on Bridges for a while now, but at least seeing him this year, I know like this kid belongs in the NBA. And PJ has been really surprising. I didn't really know much about him, and it seemed like a weird pick at the time, but he's been great. At least, I mean, he's still a rookie, obviously, but there's a lot of potential there.
But I'm pretty sure we can all agree that this next person we talk about is probably way above either of these players right now, and that's Luka Doncic here. All right, I said that name really weird, I know, but Luka Doncic.
You said it right.
Did you guys know? Did you guys know that his mom was a model?
Yeah,
Let me
I knew
look her
that.
up right now.
Everyone knows.
Come
that.
on, man. Everybody
You didn't
knows
know?
that.
No, I didn't.
He's the pretty boy, you know. He's
Sorry,
a wonder
he's-
boy.
He's Wonder Boy.
But yeah, I mean, 28 points per game, 10 rebounds, 9 assists. I mean, his field goal, his 3-point percentage could be a little bit better, but I feel a lot of that is because he's playing a lot of hero ball for that team. But I mean,
Well, how many threes is he? He's pulling up almost 9 threes a game. So, like, if he can get that up to 35, because he's never going to be like a 12 a game, James Harden, 36% from 3, that's tough to crack. But, like, if Luka Doncic can put up 10 threes a game and shoot 34%, that's really impressive.
yeah, I mean, I think overall, like the fact that his 3-point percentage is a little lower than you would like. I mean, his efficiency is still really good, but he's averaging very nearly a triple-double, and I've seen him play in some games. Like you're like, this is the guy that is gonna change the way people view international players. Like players that played overseas. Like this, like a lot of this kind of started with him, in terms of of like good international players that didn't play in the States.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the NBA have been burned too many times by picking Darko Milicic and Andrew Barjani and these players, these high-ranked international players, and then drag on Bender, and then they ended up being bust in the NBA. So, which is, I think, part of the reason why Luka didn't go number one overall, even though anybody with two eyes could see that kid should have been the first pick in the draft.
He was also different than any of those players, though. Like, nobody had the pedigree that he had. I mean, he was the MVP of the second best league in the world at 17 or 18 years old. He was at 16 years old. He was playing with men that were like twice his size.
Again, more reason why he should have gone first overall.
Yeah, not to mention, like, he comes from a basketball family. Like, his dad played in Europe. And so, like, he's been, like, living in that world since he was young. So he was a kid. So I don't know. But that's besides the point. He's showing everybody that, hey, I'm amazing.
Yeah, I mean, for being a second year, he's already in early MVP conversations. I don't think he'll be able to win it. Specifically, he's young. Being young is kind of hard to win it, especially when you're competing against guys that are more established for years and have been competing for this award. Giannis seems to be right now the leading vote getter, who's in his own right putting up amazing numbers.
And then we have Mr. almost averaging 40 points Harden.
Yeah, almost at 40 points. And I just don't think Dallas can win enough for him to get there. But I'm talking about a second-year player.
He's 20.
He's 20 years old, putting up almost a triple-double. If Westbrook hadn't done it for 3 years in a row, just think about looking at this guy putting up almost, because he's like a 9.2 assists per game, almost at a triple-double. That's really impressive for a 20-year-old.
Yeah, and the efficiency that he's doing at that is also really good as well.
If you're, I guess I would say if you're the Suns or Sacramento, you're kicking yourself in the butt. Because you could say Atlanta traded down, but Atlanta, I think they both won that trade because Trae Young is amazing in his own right.
Yeah, I think Dallas probably, Atlanta probably won the trade only in the sense that they both got good players, but Atlanta also got a first-round pick an extra first-round pick.
Which they used on Cam Reddish, so how much did they win that trade?
Well, we'll see, it's still early on.
Cam Reddish is probably the worst player in the NBA right now.
Yeah, Cam Reddish is by far the worst player.
The worst rotation player in the NBA. I mean, he's still a rookie, but I don't think it's really. They both won the trade. You can both win a trade. I think OKC, when they traded for Paul George, they both won the trade.
Yeah.
I mean, Paul George ended up leaving, but
think about how many picks they got for Paul George.
Right? So you could be like, oh, they both won the trade. Both of them got what they needed.
And they got Shea, who is another player that's been really impressive this year, putting up 21 points per game. He was really undervalued in that draft.
So, I mean, all in all with Luka, it's just been really impressive. And I think he could, if he continues like this, I think they can make the playoffs. I think Kristaps is only going to get better. He hasn't been great, but I mean, he is coming back from that injury still. I'm really excited to see with Luka the future. Like, every time I think about what he's been doing and I watch him, watch replays of what he does, it's just like, wow, like, this guy's going to win MVPs. And he's so young. And it's amazing. And if we can get more players like him, the better.
I just think it's great that some of the best players, like the best up-and-coming players, and even some of the best players in our league right now, are international players. Giannis Antetokounmpo, Luka Doncic, even Joel Embiid. These are players that...
Cat's Dominican, technically.
Yeah.
Cat's Dominican.
I mean, I think that the fact that these are some going to be like the next great players in the league, with like Anthony Davis probably leading the charge. Well, Anthony Davis and Antetokounmpo leading the charge in a way. It just makes me less worried when LeBron does end up retiring. Even though it's going to be awful, but at least there's good players left behind.
Yeah, and with so many of these players being international, basketball is only going to get more and more popular now. I mean, it's super popular in Australia. Basketball is popular in the Netherlands. It is popular in Sweden. 29 NBA basketball teams are super popular in China. It's getting popular in Mexico. It's growing in Canada. It's only getting more and more popular, and we're seeing players from all over the world play basketball. And it's great because I love the NBA and seeing it get more and more big. Hopefully one day it gets as big as
So
soccer.
Guys, I want to start a new segment here on our podcast. It's going to be the pop topic of the week. So it's just going to be a quick, little discussion about a certain topic, or a question, I should say. So the question I want to ask you guys, who's the best of the worst in terms of who's the best of the worst teams in the NBA right now.
So what's considered the worst teams? Anybody under 500?
Anybody under 500, and you assume they're probably not going to make the playoffs, but they've been playing pretty well. Like give your, I want you guys to name your team and then give a quick explanation as to why. We'll each have one.
So like say like would you include Portland?
No, because I feel like no, because they're a team that's competing for a playoff spot. Like for example, like the Washington Wizards aren't competing for a playoff spot. You know, they may be, but everybody knows that they're not like in it. You know what I mean?
Then for me, it's got to be my boys over in New York, Marcus Morris Sr. No, probably Memphis. I would say Memphis. I think that if you're a Memphis fan, you got to be feeling amazing because Ja Morant is like running away with this Rookie of the Year conversation. He is an incredible player. Brandon Clark has been great too. And like when you got Jaren Jackson Jr., Brandon Clark, and Ja Morant, you have a future there. And it's not even that. They're not even trying to win necessarily. And they're 5-8 on the season, which is even more impressive. You have Ja Morant's had a game-saving block, a game-winning pass, and now game-winning layup. For a rookie in less than a month in the NBA season, that's really impressive. And if you're Memphis, you got to be feeling really good. So that's my pick for best or the worst.
I would say my best of the worst has to be easily the Golden State Warriors. Right now it's a down year for them, but coming up next year they're going to get Curry back. They're going to get Clay back. D'Angelo Russell is going to keep balling like he is. I mean, right now he's injured for like 2 weeks, and he's going to end up being a great trade. They're going to trade him, and then they're going to be back up in finals contenders next year
with a pick and Eric Pascal.
With the future Tim Duncan and Eric Pascal. So I would say they're the best situation of all the worst teams. But I'm honestly pretty excited for Atlanta. I don't think they can make the playoffs this year. I think they had a shot by losing
John Collins.
Wow, it's blanked. John Collins has hurt them. But I think I will get them the best of the worst because Trey's been unbelievable. And then they've actually found a really good thing with Jabari Parker. I think a lot of teams have given up on him, and I don't think he's a star in the NBA, but I think if you can have Jabari Parker buy into like a six-man role, you have a really good guy coming off the bench for you. And I think they have a future. And it might be good for them to lose. It might be really good for them to lose John Collins because it only makes their pick this year better.
I would say my team of the best of the worst would probably have to be New Orleans, the Pelicans, in my opinion, just because I feel like they're playing pretty well, but they are dealing with some injuries and everything. But Zion Williamson should hopefully be back in another like month and a half, something like that. And Brandon Ingram, hopefully he gets, he heals up nicely and everything. I think they have a good thing going. They're just not winning games, but I think that I would probably say they're probably one of the best of the worst right now, in my opinion.
Yeah, they have a good future too. Anyways, thanks for listening this week to 48 Minutes or Less NBA Podcast, guys. As always, please rate and review. We read all feedback, and share this podcast with your friends. Share it on Twitter, share it on Instagram, share it on Facebook. The more people hear us, the more times we can do this, and we can continue growing. We can keep talking about basketball, and you guys get to listen to us talk about basketball. We'll be back next week, either Tuesday or Wednesday. It just depends. We're not 100% sure exactly on the day or the time. So the easiest way to hear from us is to always hit that subscribe. That way you got us, and it'll just update you on when we release our new stuff. Anyways, thanks, guys, and I hope you have a great week and enjoy the next week of basketball.
I love you, lady.
Bye, guys.
Skip.
Skip.